a playlist original.
Hey everyone, Jeff here from Films at Home. Thank you for coming back to the podcast today. Whether you're watching it on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast app, I appreciate you and I appreciate your support of my content. Today's episode is a really good one. Today I'm talking to Todd Sokolove. He is the Director of Global Brand Marketing for Paramount Pictures, primarily in the digital and physical home entertainment space. So he is actually the guy who kind of spearheaded the Paramount Presents line. He's worked on many of their home entertainment, both physical and digital releases over the last 4 years. And in his prior life, he worked at Hallmark, he worked for Miramax, he worked for Warner Brothers. So he has a really good understanding of this industry. And so I'm going to dive in here with him and we're going to talk about sort of the physical media market, the value of like digital versus physical consumers and the streaming market and how all of that is affecting things, together at the same time and changing the way that home entertainment is thought about at these major studios. And we're also going to go through some of his favorite recent releases, stuff from Criterion, Vinegar Syndrome that he's been really excited about. And we just kind of geek out about home entertainment and physical media in this world. And for me, just gain a more understanding of the business side of things, and hopefully the same for you guys. Now I will say, disclaimer on this, Todd here, he's representing his own personal beliefs. He's not speaking on behalf of Paramount Pictures. He's not here representing Paramount in an official capacity. He's here on the podcast. Yes, he works for Paramount, but these are all his personal opinions, and I just need to put that out there so you guys are aware. He's not speaking for Paramount with anything he says on this podcast. These are his personal opinions. But with that being said, let's jump into the interview. I think you guys will really like this one and enjoy it. Todd was great to have on, super, super knowledgeable, and I learned a lot, so I think you will too. So sit back, relax, enjoy the interview, and I'll talk to you guys at the end. All right, everybody, welcome to the interview here with Todd Sokolove from Paramount. Todd, thank you for joining today. This is very cool.
You're welcome. It's great
Could you
to be
give
here.
us a little? No, thank you. I think you're the first person from any who got any connection to any of the big four. So this is
Excellent.
very cool, and I'd love to hear your opinions on things. So to kick things off, if you could just start like, how did you get into this business? What's your kind of career background? What's the path that brought you here? Because I'm always interested to hear how people end up in like that home entertainment space.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for the intro. I would say, honestly, I got into it from loving it, from having a passion for it since the early days. I'm older than you, so the early days of home entertainment. I was actually trying to think back to like the first time I saw home entertainment displayed, and I was I'm going to say my parents took me and my brother to a home and garden show in Detroit where I grew up, and there was a video disc display on one of those projection TVs with the RGB, and it was Star Trek: The Motion Picture and Superman the movie. And so this is pre-beta, and I was mesmerized. In fact, I was actually so mesmerized that I lost my parents at the, at the show. I actually was just standing there watching this thing. So like the whole concept of home entertainment has always been fascinating to me. And then, grew up with the mom and pop video stores. I'm from a small town in Michigan, so really great experience with horror movies and VHS and renting the VHS player with two movies over a weekend, like that kind of thing. And so home entertainment's just always really stuck with me personally as a love. But I went to film school. I tried to find my landing in this crazy entertainment industry, and worked for studios most of my life, actually, on the East Coast. I was an intern at Miramax. I was at Warner Brothers. I was with a company called Hallmark Entertainment for many years, which launched the Hallmark Channel. And the funny thing is I was always on the television side of the business. So we would do all the ancillary sales basically, and always in marketing, sometimes trade marketing, sometimes consumer marketing, but that's how I got into the business. And I was always really quite fascinated with film distribution, and ancillary markets. Once it's out of theatrical, like how do more people get to see the movie? And but it was always movies in those ancillary markets, and then some television series, but mostly long form entertainment. So that led to a few other companies that got me here to Paramount. And honestly, in the direct like feature film business, feature films in home entertainment, this is really my first gig. So I'm new to that. I've been doing it for about 5 years, but all that experience in the background brought me to this, and just really having the passion for movies, especially, and having a knowledge base of film history brought me into the catalog team at Paramount, which was a super exciting, opportunity that I jumped for. And I will be honest, we're sort of at the tail end of physical home entertainment catalog business, in terms of just comparatively to if I had started, like, say, 20 years ago, it would have been a totally different space. So, in a way, like that's how I got here, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. I wouldn't trade it for like 20 years ago. I think right now is a super exciting time to be in.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's been so much coming out. I was just talking on another podcast episode. I was like, I think 2022 was like the most physical releases that the world had ever seen. Just like
Interesting. Yeah.
boutique labels, catalog, studio stuff. There's just so many people producing
Yeah.
so many great releases.
Yep.
And then of course, you've got the Paramount Presents line was a very big part of that as well.
Yeah.
I think you did you help kickstart that, I think?
I did. When I started at Paramount, one of the very obvious things that I felt was missing was doing celebrate, kind of a boutique type of celebration of the titles, whereas we had typically done the approach of core releases, things in new release would go into catalog, and then you keep the lights on by repackaging or coming up with different ways to celebrate anniversaries and things like that. And all that's great, but as you know, the emerging physical market opportunities are around collectors and passionate people like us that really want something on their shelf that stands for being the best possible version of the release that it can be. And certainly, Shout Factory was doing it. Criterion, of course, invented it. Um, Kino and Olive Films at the time, and a lot of these different sub licensees were really already doing it. When I came in, we had very recently gotten our deep catalog back from Warner Brothers. Warner had released, so you'll see like a Warner Brother logo on some of the Paramount Blu-ray releases from the past, and they did a great job bringing to Blu-ray a lot of titles, but it was a different market back then. It was very much mass, sales, and driven by Walmart and Best Buy when Best Buy had a big selection of Blu-rays. This is pre 4K, and we just carved out an opportunity. We said, like, look, this two things were happening. 4K was emerging, and this is like 2016. So the opportunity to bring things to 4K, and I'm not even just talking HDR, like SDR even, was there. And so we have an incredible archive team at Paramount that was charged with doing new scans. A lot of titles just hadn't been scanned in a while. So rescans very much driven by the television sales, television business, but also home entertainment benefiting from a lot of the scans became something that landed in my lap. And so from that, long story short, was birthed this idea of doing our own label. And we entered it with Blu-ray releases. Some of the titles had already seen the light of day on Blu-ray, and were certainly devalued at like bargain prices kind of thing. But when we saw the new transfers, we felt like, oh my god, these are the versions that need to be the versions out there. So that was the birth of Paramount Presents, and it's luckily kept going, and we found an audience for it, and I think um, making the switch to things that had never been on format before was our best idea. Putting in digital copies, putting in, we always promised new VAMs, so that was, always established. And then, switching to 4K has been, luckily we've been able to do that. So, um, it's kind of a rare thing, but I will say, other studios are doing it too. Sony's doing great stuff with those 4K collections, Columbia collections, and Lionsgate's doing amazing stuff, even just with the Vestron line and things like that. So happy to be kind of like playing in that sandbox, and especially on titles that I grew up with, or that were always my favorite titles. So it's like kind of one part curation, two part opportunity, three part, marketplace,
Yeah,
driven.
no, it all just
Yeah,
kind of came together at the right time, I guess, right? And
yeah,
just
definitely.
made sense.
Well, Paramount.
So is that
Yeah, I was gonna say like Paramount's a great studio to be able to do this with because of the storied history. I mean, it's
yeah,
over
I was gonna say
100
the
years
catalog's
old.
incredible.
The catalog is insane. It's like the Republic Pictures library, is pretty massive, and makes up for a lot of the films that had been lost to Universal, um, as that were Paramount, including my favorite movie of all time, Vertigo. Um, but also the Miramax acquisition recently was really beneficial as well. And ironically, I'm back on some movies I worked on when I was at college as an intern. So full circle, total full circle.
Yeah. So I mean, is this where you see, the market going as someone who's been in here for a while, you work in marketing, you're following the trends. Is it
I
is it
think it's a
collectors?
part of the where the marketplace is, because if you really, I think you pointed this out in the past, like if you look at the charts in Media Play News. I was want to say Home Media Magazine, I think was what it used to be called. Um, it's driven by DVD. We are still driven. It's still a marketplace that is driven by new release, certainly. Um, DVD is widely available at Walmart, which is the highest brick and mortar availability, and you're seeing that start to shrink. Certainly, I like personally think that 4K is going to grow past Blu-ray, but it all has to do with the number of titles being released. The majority of the DVD sales are driven by a category called other, which is not the major studios. And so as these sub-licensing deals become more commonplace, I would say certainly with the major studios, we as lovers of movies and collectors get to see more releases, which is very exciting. So in some way, like that's what's happening in the catalog space. But I don't think the everyday SKUs are going away anytime soon. There's still, as you can see from like repackaging efforts or promotional efforts, it's still there every time the store resets their product. There may be less of it in stores, certainly, but it's still there. I kind of like equate it to CDs still exist, right? Like CDs exist as a format. Physical media, books still exist. I think physical media will still be around in some capacity. That's just unfortunately, sales are declining market wide, and people like me have to be a little bit more creative in how we can do something really great, and continue to have a physical product out there, because at the end of the day, it's better quality, right? I don't. There are many filmmakers that would want their movies streamed, quite frankly, until that technology like really catches up, and SVOD's kind of out of the question in terms of quality. Um, you know, it's just the best way to experience a film is physical media. Obviously at home. This is Thumbs Zone podcast. Not to dissuade anybody from going to see, a new DCP that's struck, back in theaters, or even better yet, something on 35 millimeter or 70. Yeah, it's an incredible time to be a film fan right now because you have all these incredible choices, and it's nice to know that you still can have quality for your home theater situation, and it's not all it's not all digital.
And I think I share a similar hypothesis that you share here with
Mm.
DVD and 4K, where like there in any market, like there's the budget option
Yeah.
and then there's the premium option, and the
Mhm.
one that sits in the middle usually dies out. Like there's not many people in the middle. You kind of want the best
Yeah,
price or you want the best experience.
that's interesting. Yep.
And with 4K, I just see a market where it's like there's gonna be DVD for people who just want the movie at home,
Mhm.
the cheapest experience, the
Or
easiest
really,
format,
yeah, or the availability, quite frankly.
the
I mean, there's
availability. Yeah,
so
because
much
there's
more on
thousands of movies who,
DVD. Yeah,
yeah, and then there's the 4K, and like 1080p Blu-ray just kind of is floating in there in the middle,
it
and I
does.
wonder
I
if that's
mean,
going to continue to shrink.
I don't know. I mean, as you see, I mean, sometimes not everything is going to be brought to 4K. First of all, 4K is HDR. I should say, is extremely expensive. And like at least my experience with it has been, at a major studio, has been that like our quality control is really really high. So nothing's going out the door if it's not Dolby Vision and HDR10, and a certain frame rate, and like everything has to be crunched in terms of numbers. So luckily that's changed quite a bit because the demand has changed. So there's more opportunity to bring things to 4K. But that said, like I don't think like certain films really look great on 4K. I mean, sometimes Blu-ray is going to be as great as it can be. And when we're looking at opportunities for releases, like that's something we keep in mind as well. So sometimes Blu-ray is going to be the only option. It's certainly a great upgrade over DVD. Um, but I heard a statistic that like at at any given moment, like what's available in streaming in terms of catalog choices, is like 22% of what is out there by the IP holders. So you're only talking about it, even though it seems like there's so much to watch, and certainly on streaming platforms like Amazon Prime and even Paramount Plus, there are a lot of things to choose from, but it just represents such a small amount of what is out there, and you don't realize it until you want to watch it, right? Like, until you go to try to find the thing, and hopefully not watch it illegally on YouTube. But it's it's that dilemma that I think keeps certain physical titles in business. A very good example is Better Off Dead. I mean, that had only been on DVD and Blu-ray for forever, right? Until last year, and we were able to finally launch it in digital. And of course, it's huge because it's a title that my generation grew up with and is now probably sharing with their kids or maybe even grandkids. And it's just that availability will continue, whether that is in digital or physical. Like, it's a good thing.
I mean, having options, right,
Yeah.
is a good, like, you as a consumer. Yeah, there's like the physical media world will complain, and there's everybody has those movies that like, why doesn't it have a Blu-ray? Why doesn't it have a Blu-ray? But you make a good point that there's probably for every one of those that
Yeah.
doesn't have a Blu-ray or a DVD,
Mhm.
there's probably 5 or 6 that don't have a release on a streaming platform. You can't rent
Yeah.
digitally. You can't even get them on an iTunes or
Yeah. And
Vudu or whatever.
absolutely. I think Justin, Beam, when you interviewed him, like hit on this a little bit. It all has to do with rights. When contracts were made, there was no foresight to digital distribution, and in some cases, certain titles were defined as disc or even tape, videotape, and so it's kept it from being available in the format because the music would have to be cleared, the royalties would have to be figured out, and the biggest hurdle is music licensing. So it's why you don't see Cocoon available from Disney, on streaming. Um, it's why Better Off Dead was kept out of the marketplace. We had My Fair Lady wasn't available in digital, and it's a Best Picture winner. So, um, fortunately, I have a team of lawyers back at Paramount that are like constantly clearing these titles, and some of it is, I mean, it all has to be looked at with what is the return going to be? Is it worth us doing? How much is it going to cost? And so being able to do that has been really great, just in terms of like from a film preservation perspective, even like just knowing that the film is available, like keeps it going, because as we know, so much of film history has been lost due to nitrate or what have you. Um, I don't think that it's out of the question that movies that I grew up with will never see the light of day again. If it's not for people like Vinegar Syndrome or Shout Factory, or like these niche companies that are really able to do it. So like when I'm able to do it for like a Burt Reynolds obscure movie like Rough Cut and Paramount Presents, I know there's an audience for that sort of thing. Those are the kind of fun things I get to work on.
Yeah, and that is part of why I've loved, well, all this work that's been happening lately with physical releases, and
Yeah,
all the releases that have been coming out is great. But I think that the even better part, if you look beyond that, is the fact that those were now preserved in a higher definition format, or in a
absolutely. Some of
on
these
digital.
transfers, yeah. I mean, they look
Maybe they
better
just
than
existed on a reel. Like, at least they're now
absolutely.
saved somewhere. They're not deteriorating. So
Yeah.
it's a that's a huge part of it for me, and that's why I buy some of these too. Like, you support those efforts.
What
And
movie would you say you've bought the most, like rebought the most in a format?
oh, it's got to be Jaws. I think I have every North American release of Jaws. Like,
Yeah,
currently, like I have the first MCA laser disc, I have the VHS, I have the
yeah,
DVD, and I have, you know, 3 versions of the Blu-ray, 2 versions of the 4K.
yeah.
I've got them all.
That's great.
That's my movie. That's my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, yeah. That's great. Mine is actually Gremlins, and I've it was the first VHS I bought. Um, and it was like $40. It was a used copy at the video store for like 39.99 back in the day. And I've bought it on every single format. And every time it's re-released or retransferred, I get so excited just to see the detail, that you're looking for, in the film, that even sometimes theatrical, film prints can't deliver on. But I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. Like if it's back in 70 millimeter, like I'll go to the theater just to see it, even though I have the 4K. I think,
Yeah, no, I
yeah,
mean, there's nothing like that. You
yeah,
can't, as much as 4K is excellent, and some of these scans and transfers that have come out are amazing, but you can't replicate a really good 70 millimeter in a theater.
yeah,
That's just,
exactly.
you can't replicate that at home.
Exactly. I think one of the things that's interesting also about like the home media experience is that in many cases, especially with 4K and the HDR color grading, you're seeing it in a way that's completely different than you are used to seeing it, for so many years. And that's going to differ with generations, right? Depending on how old the film is. In the cases where a director is not alive to oversee a transfer or color grading, you try to go to the next best thing, which is usually like a cinematographer or an editor, and then in some cases, because it's such an old film, like you rely on the archive team to look at source material and run different dye tests almost with the original camera negative, and try to get to what the original vision of the thing is. But we've had titles excuse me, where a director will come in and really change it, like really kind of start to work with picture quality, and that's interesting, because I think what it does is like provides the opportunity of dusting something off and making it even better, and making it an even better experience than it was in the past. That may be kind of controversial. It would only be done at a studio if the director is really putting their foot down and saying like, this is the way I want it to sound now or look now, and that's certainly something that, like, it's been done, I would say, to the dismay of a lot of fans, like in the George Lucas kind of camp of messing with Star Wars, all the way to somebody like Spielberg who like really wanted to make sure Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade didn't have those crazy blue screen lines, when it was released on 4K. So it's like there's a balance in between, and I think ultimately it's kind of like exciting to see like what is it going to look like on these new formats, and especially as technology to play back the formats just gets better and better. Like that even changes it as well.
Oh yeah, I mean the difference between a 4K TV from 2018 and a brand
Yeah,
new one off the line right now. I mean, yeah, it's a world of difference. Like the technology, the disc, I guess, has always been solid, but the
hmm
display technology almost came after. Like it almost didn't. The discs were ahead of the display technology in a
yeah,
way, especially with the HDR, which was interesting.
yeah,
Usually it's flipped. Like the
right.
tech comes and then the format comes.
Yeah, it's absolutely that. I was a fan of laser discs actually, and had many of them, mainly for the special features because that was just so novel at the time. And but I will stand by the audio on Laserdisc being far superior than anything. Like I think even better than DVD at the time. Um, of course, you had to flip the disc over 500 times before you got to the end of the movie. So there was that. But yeah, it is kind of interesting. But I think at the end of the day, like going back to the physical marketplace, like um, i- the collector out there now has more information about that sort of playback and the best way to kind of achieve it. So I don't I I think it's just it's an interesting time because everybody in that camp is a curator really. They're putting together their own festivals at home and look at Letterboxd as a social community. Like I think that's something that like a lot of folks, in the early days of film school could never have even dreamed of would be a thing, right? So, super excited that like it's still going and there's still kind of like an audience for that sort of product.
Oh, and we're so split. You had mentioned like the $40 used VHS. Like, what is that? And I have a Jurassic Park laser disc that
Yeah.
I have sealed in my collection with a
Oh, nice. Yeah.
59.99 price tag on it. And I'm
Oh,
like,
wow. Yeah.
what does that equal? Like 2023 dollars inflation considered.
They
Like
were expensive. Yeah. I
we're
mean,
over $100 in 2023 dollars, and we can get these amazing transfers with
yeah.
Atmos audio and everything else, and they're $25 at release. Like we are kind of spoiled. It's really good.
Definitely, but again, like there's, that's certainly for a more uh, expert audience that knows all that, and certainly we see that with like whenever you have discounts, like price drops and things like that. It's people like us that are really taking advantage of that and driving the sales. I think the average everyday purchaser of home entertainment, unfortunately, is not that. Is like, oh, it's not on Netflix. Where can I find it? Oh, I give up. I'm going to rent it for $4 on iTunes. And that's a good thing. I oversee digital as well, so EST and TVOD, and so to be able to try to figure out that audience and really start to bring them in has been interesting as well because it's all about curation. It's like working with the Apples and the Amazons and the Voodoos to get ahead of those moments and beats, and they certainly come to us with weekly ideas and asks and things like that. But it's been very interesting to see how that marketplace has changed so much as well because like I said, not everything is going to be available on streaming all the time.
Do you see a huge difference in that consumer versus and like because I think other than the crazy maybe the 1% of the physical media people like
Mhm.
I subscribe to every stream. I have Netflix and Amazon and Paramount Plus and Apple
Sure.
TV.
Yeah,
I'm watching The Last of Us on HBO. Like, I'm not
for
shunning
the
things because
original.
they're not on physical.
Mhm.
So I am a digital consumer as much as
Same.
I am a physical. So do you see a lot of overlap, or do you think those are sort of two
Um,
different worlds?
I mean, there is a little bit of overlap. I mean, certainly have done a lot of that market research, and but I think as a brand marketer myself, it generally, like, we know the attributes of each space, and I think that if there was like truly overlap, like 80% overlap, which it's definitely not. I can tell you that. You would see a higher redemption rate on digital codes in physical media. The fact that exists, and it was, I think, designed really as a gateway for moving to digital, but that didn't happen. And I mean, I'm somebody that would redeem the code. Like, I want it in my digital locker, and I want to have the physical, depending on where I am, what I'm doing. If I'm on a flight, like, I want to download the movie, and watch it. It's a nice convenience. That's part of being a collector and part of building a library. You have both options, right? But there are. I would probably lean on saying that there aren't a lot of double dippers out there, unless there's some real, like, impulse buy opportunity, like, three for 9.99 or something like that in the digital space. What I will say about digital is that you, with digital, you don't really, you can't really guarantee what you're going to get. I know you've talked a little bit about, like, how you don't own it, you don't, it might not be there. There's certain rights that get lost, stuff like that. I wouldn't be worried so much about that, because you always have it, in the cloud. You always have it in the locker, no matter what. Like, when Lionsgate was selling Scream, it's not like that went away from your cloud when we started selling Scream at, Paramount. But what is not a constant is picture quality, right? I think in the digital space, a lot of it's driven by SVOD, and so oftentimes, what the version of something out there may not be the same as something that's in the physical space. Something like a Paramount Presents, like that, offer that opportunity to see it a certain way, not just the format, but like a remaster, may not yet exist in the digital space. And it all depends on platform. It depends on, like, it really has to do with expenses. Like, is it a platform that, if you're a Voodoo person, are they proactively updating their version of The Little Mermaid when it went to 4K? Like, maybe not. Maybe the HD didn't get remastered, and that's the one that you own. And again, they're not people aren't really aware of that so much as collectors are, but, like, as far as the crossover goes, like, these are concerns. These are things that you don't want something that's inferior in digital and superior in physical. Not just bitrate quality, but like film transfer.
Yeah.
So it,
And so are there rights issues there too, where somebody might, I mean, do you get into like a world where Disney's like, no, 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 we're not putting the HD scan of this on this platform because we released a Blu-ray and we want that exclusive as a physical? Like, is that,
I don't
do we
think
break down at that level?
I don't think it breaks down at that level. It's definitely, well, it wouldn't have anything to do with rights. I would say that, like, I've definitely noticed, from, I won't name any studios, but, like, I've purchased a Blu-ray and had a digital copy, and you go to the digital copy, and sometimes it's like a 4:3 transfer. It's not even like the full frame, and because they're different worlds, they exist in different, kind of like, profit centers, and maybe there's a totally different team that handles delivery and everything. Like, ideally, everything would align, and that's what we certainly try to do. But that crossover consumer that's buying both will notice that, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, for sure. I mean, even, and I wonder, I mean, we touched on this a little bit. I've touched on it. Like, is there education for the consumer? Do you think that would
Mm.
make a difference to have more people understand benefits of a 4K and HDR versus just like, I mean, I think people know
Hmm.
generally. I judge based on talking to my own parents. Like,
Sure.
do they do they know the difference between like 1080 and 4K? And like, yes, it's 4 times more, but like, do they understand a film transfer, and do they understand, a lot of people don't even
Sure.
understand like how great an older movie can
Yeah.
look, and they assume that those are worthless on 4K. Why would you put out a movie from the 50s on 4K? It
Mm.
makes no sense. 4K is modern. So there's like just I just see a lack of
It's
education
what,
even in
yeah,
the collector's market, where people
absolutely.
are buying these things already. And
Yeah, it's
I
interesting
guess
that
that's
you
part
bring
of what
that
I
up.
try to do is help.
It put it out there like you should. Yeah, absolutely. I think, look, everything is kind of like toe in the water. When we brought out It's a Wonderful Life in 4K, I thought the same thing. I was like, what, HDR is for brighter color, or more vibrant color, and this is not in color, and like, we do the colorized in 4K, like that kind of thought goes through your mind first, and then you realize like, oh no, this is incredible what they did because
Right.
HDR.
Black and white, some of my favorite
Yeah,
HDR
exactly. Look at
transfers.
Citizen Kane, what was done with that even. But like, I do think there's definitely a commonplace. We're in a world where like people watch movies on their phones, right? Like so, so there's definitely sort of a more commonplace experience of like maybe that's not the ideal thing. Maybe it's convenience or availability that is really a driving factor in the marketplace. And so when it's that, you focus on that certainly. That's been big in the PVOD space certainly. Like the ability to see Megan like 2 weeks after the theatrical release. Like I feel like just about everything is like before I even have a chance to go see it in theaters, it's available for me for 1999. That's convenience, right? Like that's not the experience. That's not the motion picture experience. Certainly that the filmmakers probably want you to have, but none of that matters right now because we're marketplace driven on the accessibility and the availability, and I think that's a wonderful thing. Unfortunately, in the physical space, it costs more money to create a disc and to package it and to market it and get it into stores and ship it and all that stuff. So there's a cost around that that doesn't exist in the digital space, and there's a timeline. Like we can't like you shrink timeline, so it takes longer for the physical disc to be out there. And I think the perception is like, well, why isn't this out why is this on digital before it's on physical? Like it is what it is. I don't think there's anything that like could be done to educate consumers on that. But when it comes to picture quality, I will use my parents as an example as well. I was home over the holiday and I noticed that like they had this ancient cable box basically that they were using from Spectrum. And as we all know, like they don't proactively call you and say, "Do you have an up to date cable box?" Like you have to call them or you have to exchange it. And but they have a beautiful 4K television, like, better than mine. And so I looked into it for them and exchanged it out, and there was this incredible like new box that was like the size of a hockey puck, basically, like an Apple TV. Switched it out, and they immediately saw the difference. And they're in their 70s, and I was just like, wow, like if they can see the difference in that, that's interesting to me. Like immediately saw the picture quality difference. I mean, I saw the picture quality difference because they certainly were only getting 1080 through this box on a 4K television. So I don't think that existed from DVD to Blu-ray. I think a lot of people were not really like the masses were not trained to see the difference. There's a lot of talk about like how the eye can only see so much of a difference, but 4K HDR, especially physical, like really does speak for itself. And I'm a big fan of it and what we can do with it, and we'd hope that that's where things are going. Certainly, even beyond just the physical collector or collector consumer.
Right. I mean, even I'd want the digital experience to be just as great, and with that HDR scan and
Yeah,
everything.
absolutely.
No matter where I buy it, I would hope the convenience and the availability would also equal quality of kind of equal across the board.
Sure. And then the next best thing is that it is available in 4K with both HDR passes, in streaming, or you could download it for higher bitrate. But like, um, not everything's going to be available in every single format. Unfortunately, it's all driven by purchase power. It's all driven by the comps and the people out there that are going to buy this type of product. And until that becomes more mass, which very likely probably won't, it's just a conundrum. But that's why as a fan myself, like I think it's great what Vinegar Syndrome is doing, what Kino is doing. Um, you know, they they can do things that the major studios really can't because they're a little bit more nimble. They have a lot of in-house resources, and that's all they do. They just do it. And the other thing is like I'm a global team, so like when I'm creating discs, I'm creating it for every territory that it's a one and done thing, like for so that you're not spending so much money and creating so many discs. Whereas, something like Criterion is just US and Canada, or Shop Factory is just releasing things in the US. They don't have dubs and subs and all those things that go into, bringing up the cost of authoring. So like that, all of that goes to say like whenever something comes out, yeah, I mean, it's like, why can't we have this title, or why was it this certain way? Um, Thankfully, there are third party, studios out there that are just really doing amazing stuff on some of the most obscure titles you can imagine.
Oh, I know. Well,
It's exciting.
that's what I always wonder. I see some of the stuff Vinegar Syndrome puts out,
Yeah.
and some of it I'm like, okay, yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, that's gonna sell. That's
Mhm.
for them, that's mainstream. And then I see stuff and I'm like, boy, how are they doing this? How are they gonna break even on some of this
You're gonna
stuff? But
you'd have to talk to them.
yeah,
So
I
hopefully
don't,
you can get
I'm
somebody on
like,
to talk about it. But like, I don't get too in the weeds about like how anybody does what they do. I could say that about a lot of studios. I just know what I can do, and hope that we can do more of it. Yeah.
I say good for them. I don't know how they do it, but like you
Yeah,
said, it's a small
exactly.
team. I know they just bought a new restoration scanner and stuff, so they just do it
Mhm.
in house. And
Yeah, which
yeah, I
is
mean
great. That's
they can get away with,
absolutely fantastic.
yeah.
We're a little bit more traditional and stringent, certainly on our films. I know that our archive team sometimes can take years to work on a project, 'cause just to get it right, especially if you're dealing with partners like BFI or the Film Foundation, or even just the directors themselves, can take a while.
Well, and at the end of the day, like this is what as I've talked to more people, if you asked me 5 years ago, I'd have no knowledge.
Mm,
I'd have no appreciation for this, but like this is a business at the end of the day. Like
yeah,
somebody, if nobody makes money, then we're not getting any discs, period, because it doesn't make sense.
yeah.
So whether it is digital, I am curious if just over the years and in your own personal opinion here, like how do you, if I had to split consumers by like the person who only streams and pays a monthly service,
Mm,
right? Pays $8 a month.
yeah.
The person who buys things on digital and has a digital library, and the person who buys physical, like, are, is one more valuable than the other in terms of
Mm,
business sense? Like, is there? Because it feels like a lot of people are going after the streaming person, the $8 a month person.
that's correct.
I feel like the if somebody's going to pay $15 for the movie
Mhm.
one time and they do it twice a month,
Yeah.
I would think that they're a more valuable consumer than
Well,
the streamer.
yes, and I think it's all about what is, you know, when home entertainment started, it was a gold rush, right? It was like, what do we have that we can get out,
Oh
and
yeah, 100 million copies of Lion King sold on VHS. Yeah,
yeah, and that
ridiculous.
and that was deep into the rush, right? Like I'm thinking like just the very very early days of giant clamshells and cardboard boxes and things.
The numbers are absurd when you look at them now.
Yeah, exactly. And that's when home entertainment was, or at least like transactional home entertainment was lucrative. Like putting aside digital or physical, like if there was digital back then, it would have been the same thing. It would have been even more lucrative. But streaming platforms exist nowadays to not only bring in original programming, obviously, but to retain IP. And I think Disney Plus is the best example of starting this trend, where you have all of your content in one place. It's not all of it, of course, but a great deal of it. And if you can just throw in some really amazing originals that that core audience wants, spread them out a little bit so they're not canceling after they watch binge the whole season. Like that is the strategy of SVOD. And thankfully, Paramount did a massive, switch by taking CBS All Access and just saying like, okay, not only are we branding this in Paramount Plus, but we are all Paramount. Like all of this company is Paramount because it's such a strong brand. And I think that the opportunity to retain subscribers is far beyond anything in just sort of more the one-off title basis that the home entertainment industry is, right? Where we see certainly the return, as not surprisingly, if you just look at the charts, is new release, of course, but also just really like celebrating the titles, like catalog titles. What on an annual basis, depending on the year, there are going to be opportunities. Something like a Godfather 50th anniversary is very very big, and it's an initiative for us to lean into Paramount Plus certainly. So we had The Offer, we had a making of series, we had the restoration of The Godfather on Paramount Plus for a while, but we also had the celebration of it in home entertainment, the best possible way to see it at home. And so like when you can really have something that like fires on all of those cylinders from a marketing perspective, and not to mention consumer products, which I'm sure you've seen the Godfather 50th anniversary pinball machine in Atlantic City, or like the pasta, the official pasta and stuff like that. Like that's pretty exciting. Those are the fun things to work on, and all things rise, kind of. But when it comes to like Paramount Presents, that's more of a pet project. That's more of a fun thing, and like I certainly challenge myself. I go, like, can we release a better Blu-ray of Nashville than Criterion Collection did? Not that we want to like step on our partner's toes, but like that was a challenge, and yeah, thank you. Like I think we did too. And should it have been 4K? Yes, absolutely. Like it was a different time when we released it, and maybe in the future, that's certainly not out of the question. But it all comes down to numbers. It all comes down to like how many people are really going to buy this thing. What is, if I really, really, really like personally want to make this happen, like how can we make it happen? And those are the projects. There's only so much time, because certainly there are bigger titles. So as a film fan, it's like it kind of kills you a little bit inside. Like as much as I want the deluxe edition of Cool World on 4K, it's like, like reality is like I'm better off like working with Shout Factory and seeing what they can do with it, and they're
Yeah, I mean,
cool and doing
you want a job as well, like
I still want to be able to keep my job and not get
right, like it has to make sense, and
exactly.
yeah, and I guess that is a situation where you would. So I mean, I've been seeing some of this, and some studios do it, some don't, but you're pretty open to licensing stuff where it makes sense to a Shout. And
Yeah, I think where it makes sense. I mean, that's the reality of the marketplace these days, and certainly all the studios have leaned into that, which I think is great. I think in prior years there was sort of this you know feeling that like you lost the title when you did that, right? Like because only Criterion would have it or whatever. And nowadays it's very much like it's all incremental, right? And it helps to promote a title that may not be as big a priority for you right now, and it can help drive awareness of the title, and certainly only in the physical marketplace. We never do that in digital. Digital is always going to be with us. Yeah.
No, that's interesting. And a lot of the and to just go back to like you've got me thinking in a different way now about the marketplace and the streaming because it's basically software as a service, I guess. Is that this the same way that a lot of software companies who used to say pay us $99 for a license now charge you $5 a month. It's consistent income that you can count on that you know is coming every month, and that is
Yeah,
easier from a business perspective than guessing who might buy a license next month.
definitely. And certainly there are opportunities to window things so that they're not, always in streaming. Sometimes they're available in transactional. Not to, necessarily pull one over on consumers, but like that's the business, like we have a product and that's, how you sell things. But what I would love to see across the board is just more availability of classic catalog titles in the digital space. Because at the end of the day, like just look at even some of the stuff Warner Archive did, like so much stuff that just exists on DVD, unfortunately. And it may always only exist. So as a fan, like, hopefully it can be available, more availability is a good thing,
No, absolutely. As a consumer, you want options. So
basically.
I appreciate the options. I want to, at the end of the day, and I tell people this all the time, like, we're buying movies on disc because, like, yeah, we're collectors and we want the quality, but like, we also just love the movies. So I'm never going to say, well, I mean, I own a bunch of movies on DVD that don't have Blu-ray releases because what am I going to say? I'm not going to buy the DVD just out of spite because
Yeah,
no, I still want the movie. If it only exists on digital, I will buy it on a digital
sure,
platform. I want to watch it. Like
right.
at the end of the day, we want to watch these things, right? We're not just buying cardboard boxes. Like we want to consume the content.
Sure, sure. Although some cardboard boxes are nicer than others, like I think, a lot of exactly. So like, that I think is a big part of it too. It's a consumer product and just ways of like plussing up. That's actually a bigger thing in the European marketplace. I'm sure you've seen, where they're able to do a smaller quantity of like really, extravagant sets like Arrow does, or sometimes even the studios, like Warner will do them, we'll do them, and that all speaks to the collector that will buy Jaws over and over again because it just like it fulfills it's something you love and it fulfills a sort of an emotional connection to that film and yeah, which is great because that's really what it's all about. Like I think it's the personal thing that we all bring to certain movies that keeps them alive and keeps them going.
No, exactly. And
Yeah.
good segue here because I know we have some stuff you had said you want to show some stuff off talking about personal connection to movies that you've worked on or stuff you loved on physical over the years. So
Yeah,
I'd love to take a look here before
okay.
before
So
we close out.
I pulled some examples. So these are my five, and this is in no particular order because they're just sitting here. But I would say these are non-Paramount, non-box set favorite home entertainment releases of you know of late, right? Um, so I'm going to use Fast Times at Ridgemont High Criterion as an example of something that I never in a million years would think would happen. Like in the early days of the Laserdisc, they had Ghostbusters. They had, really mainstream titles in addition to 400 Blows and like all the greats, Yeah, Halloween. Yeah, exactly. It was a different time back then. Like, I think you would be able to get that licensed out. But I will say, like, the fact that Universal did this and licensed it out, but also has the 9.99, Target clamshell edition Blu-ray, or like, whatever great comedies of the '80s collection, kind of DVD in the store. The fact that these can live as separate things is very exciting as us collectors because, like, yes, this is the one I want. Right? Well, I want it on 4K technically, but like this is the version that I never thought I'd see the light of day. And they did that with Breakfast Club too, like just having like the deleted scenes that had been rumored for years. That's pretty cool stuff. Um, I'm gonna say this is more of like a personal favorite of mine is the Giorgio Moroder version of Metropolis from the '80s. I've had this on Laserdisc, and I had a VHS copied from that Laserdisc for many, many years, and then like I don't know what happened to it. Like you couldn't find it forever. So the fact that Kino brought it out on Blu-ray and it looks amazing is awesome. It's the version of the movie. I know it's kind of like blasphemous to say that because it's got all the '80s cheese and everything, but like it's the only version that exists to me, even though it's like half hour shorter than the actual movie. Okay, one from Shout Factory, very dear to my heart, is Terror in the Isles. Um, Love this movie. I saw it actually in theaters. My dad took me to see it, and I was very early into horror films, so it's the first time I saw most of the, or even heard about most of these horror movies. So I will show you beside it my beta copy of the same film. So that's how far back I go with.
That's probably a collector's item now. Those
Yeah,
horror beta tapes
I would
go for
hope
a
so. I
lot.
mean, like, check out that the back is like, that's iconic. But just like this is something that I just never thought I'd see the light of day. And it was really, I think they released Universal released it on their release of Halloween 2 back in the day, and as a bonus feature. So like the fact that it got its own separate release and there's like two versions of the film on there, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Um,
I need to get, you just had me checking my phone if I
yeah.
own that one, and
Oh,
wow,
it's
that's a gap.
fantastic.
I need to go
Yeah.
get that right
Oh,
now.
definitely, definitely. It's
I thought I
so,
did. I know it well, but apparently I
you
don't
know,
have it.
our version of this at Paramount is a movie called It Came from Hollywood, which if you've never seen it, you didn't hear it from me because it's like impossible to track down, but you may be able to find like an old VHS or Laserdisc of it. It was like all the Saturday Night Live and SCTV guys were in it, so you've got like you know Cheech and Chong were in it, even like Gilda Radner, Dan Aykroyd, and John Candy, and like just this hodgepodge, and they're introducing segments from schlocky movies is how they did it, like B movies, but most of them horror movies, and very much Terror in the Isles, same type of thing. Um, and unfortunately, like a movie with a lot of different movie clips is very, very hard to clear. So it kept it out of the public for many years, and just know that like I'm a fan of it. If it could happen, if it can happen, it will happen because I'm behind that one. Um, so this one from another criterion that I never in a million years thought would happen is True Stories. David Byrne's sort of like based on tabloid Texas movie. Just very influential movie for me as a kid. Was kind of obsessed with it, and super happy that Warner Brothers did a lot more licensing to Criterion because it seems like they've been releasing a lot of really great stuff, especially like 4K of Shaft. Like whoever thought like that would happen, and that's a good example of like where the physical, like the third party licensees are really doing great stuff. Um, and then this one is pretty obscure. Like we were talking about Vinegar Syndrome, and another one I never thought I would see such a beautiful like packaging for is this movie called The Lamp. Again, a movie I saw in theaters when I was in high school. Played for like 1 week in my hometown as The Outing, which is the slip on the inside here. And yeah, it's not the greatest movie in the world, but like to see this like beautiful transfer of the original movie, which was called The Lamp, like the original cut of it, and just beautiful embossed, slip case and all this kind of stuff. Like, yes, this is why we collect, right? Like this is the best possible version of the film in the marketplace right now. Could it be 4K? Yes, it could, but like this is the only way we're going to get it right now, and I think that's important. Like those are the things that like I love the memes, out there on Reddit of like take my money and like that kind of thing whenever we make an announcement because like these are my people, that's a great thing, and I would say that's an example of the kinds of things that I love. I wish I could buy more of them, but I have other bills to pay, so there's always that. Um,
I'm with you. I mean, if I win the lottery, I'd own the entire Vinegar Syndrome
Right,
catalog.
right,
Um,
or be a subscriber to their.
yeah, there's just so many interesting things in there.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, same. I call them out because I am a huge fan, but I mean, there's so many uh,
It's interesting.
labels doing great stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's been fun to be able to work with a lot. We did a new deal with Kino. We've seen some of the titles
They've
that
been
are coming out.
killing. They went hard on 4K, and they have been
They did.
killing that
Yeah,
market.
it's great.
Their
And
catalog
again,
stuff is incredible.
it's like I said with It's a Wonderful Life being the first black and white movie in 4K. Like we put our toe in the water, and it was just like, oh, okay, this is going to work, right? Like this. Not only does it work as a product because it looks great, but like there's an audience for this. This is the collector market that really wants the best possible quality version. I think what Vinegar Syndrome is seeing, and Kino certainly is you can release a 4K of these, especially certain genre films, action, horror, sci-fi, and sell just enough to make a profit. And if they're doing it with such great packaging, that's even better for us, uh, certainly. But that's what excites me about the future of the biz. And
Yeah, no, they have been. I just got Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3
yeah,
on 4K the other day, and yeah, I mean,
right.
it's just movies like
Well,
that
so
that are.
that's a good example of something like it's not a Paramount film, so I can speak to it in detail. But like that's an example of something that's like a restoration was done for one reason, right? Like it could have been like a client in an SVOD space wanted it. I don't know. It could have been like a new DCP had to be struck, and it could have been just like the Academy of Motion Pictures wanted to preserve it, and somebody else paid for that HDR or that preservation, and so we as consumers at home benefit for only like under $30 to own that pristine version of the thing. Um, but I would say like just think about like all the things that it takes to get to the Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3 original like on 4K. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, no, I mean that's one that I'm like I can't believe this even exists,
Yeah,
but I'm so happy that it
exactly.
does. And I mean, I had their Blu-ray release of this of the movie as well, which Kino
Hmm.
did, but I will gladly
Yeah,
support that because really this they're like a unicorn sometimes. Like these
yeah.
shouldn't exist, but somehow because
Oh, they
of
do.
everything came together and this just happens to exist, well, I need to support that because
Exactly.
it is
Exactly.
great. And no, a lot of the work you're doing, the Paramount Presents stuff, I'm so excited for Red Eye.
Yeah. Yeah. We
That
are as
is
well.
so underrated. I know I talked to Justin about that because I think he
Yeah.
did the features, right?
Yeah, he did, and the thing about Justin is he knows everybody, right? Like he's always such a great asset. I brought him in to Paramount from Shout, just knowing him from that, and wanted to as soon as we started to do more value added content for the physical releases, especially like he's one of the best out there, and I know he's a big Wes Craven fan, big horror fan, but also knew Patrick Lussier, and so that all kind of like came together, worked out. The 4K restoration was something that was already in the works at Paramount, so like that is a perfect storm situation where like if it makes sense, there's obviously an audience for it. Would I have loved for it to come out for its anniversary? Yes. But certainly sometimes that's not possible. And so like you may have heard a new Scream movie coming out, so like it kind of felt like the right time to get
I
that
did.
one out.
I've seen just a little bit about that Scream movie. Yeah. I think the marketing's going pretty well on that one. I'm
Oh, they're
actually
selling
excited
it.
to
Yeah,
see that.
yeah. I am
Scream and
too.
Ghostface in New York City is
Absolutely,
very exciting.
absolutely.
So yeah, and that Red Eye, like that is, I guess, another perfect example of just like that. It all came together. It was like I would have never, if I could have gone and looked at Paramount's catalog or Wes Craven, like I don't know, I would have picked Red Eye out and been like, yeah, this is the one. But if a
Yeah,
restoration's in progress and you can tie it into Wes Craven and Scream and it
yeah.
just works. And I think it's going to be
Exactly.
huge
Well, and we have
because it
this
is.
great special feature where we interviewed a guy that literally wrote the book on Wes Craven, but he's a film professor, and he brought a lot of really interesting connections between all of Wes's movies and Red Eye, which I never in a million years would have thought of. But he's like, no, Red Eye is as Wes Craven as you get, and he explains why. And that's pretty great, to be able to do that. And then like we found the old EPK, and that's something that Justin was able to like really rework and make it feel like Wes came back from the grave and did a new piece for us, and that's super super cool. But it's from DreamWorks. It wasn't a quote unquote Paramount release necessarily, and it's part of the DreamWorks library that we have as well. And the first one I think that we released was The Haunting. That wasn't technically a Paramount movie, and we saw a lot of like, what is that? First of all, why The Haunting, and then second of all, what is Paramount Presents if they're not Paramount movies? But they are, right? Like we have this vast catalog, and when we got the Miramax titles, it was like we have to finally do something with Just Another Girl on the IRT, which has like lingered on DVD for years and years and years. And when it got restored by Paramount and the Sundance Institute, then that became a candidate for release. So we released that a few weeks back, and it's part of the Paramount library, so it absolutely is Paramount Presents.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I mean that's you are Paramount and you are presenting it, so it works,
exactly.
right?
I think
Yeah,
it's definitely the like to build on the brand. It's just such a iconic entertainment brand, but also like it really all goes back to like we were saying about Paramount Plus. It all helps to build the brand, and they're doing insanely great stuff over there as well to do that. Certainly with IP and expanding out. Who would have thought there'd be a making of the the Godfather series on television? It's just fun stuff. Yeah.
well, from one film fan to another, I appreciate that DreamWorks and Miramax and all the things that have
Mm,
sort of come together as part of Paramount, that they haven't been buried or forgotten about, because that is I think this is everyone's biggest fear is
mm,
consolidation is fine as long as it's not consolidated and just thrown away.
ignored.
And
Yeah.
I won't name names, but it happens in
Yeah.
it happens some places.
Certainly, some people sometimes the money situation just speaks for itself, and that's certainly respectable. It's very oftentimes I mean you see so many crazy adjustments within the tech industries, especially. At the end of the day, it's like, eh, you know, do certain things have to be cut to keep a company going? And I totally understand that from that perspective. So, but as somebody that's passionate about this, like you want to see things things go. And I think there have been a lot of passionate people at studios. I mean, they wouldn't be there if they they didn't want to be a part of it. So luckily there's that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I just want to say I really, really appreciate this. This was a
Yeah.
really great conversation. I think people are going to really be interested in just, I think hearing more about the market side of this and where things are headed, and why. I think anytime we can explain more of like why certain decisions are made and the background behind that
Yeah.
helps to put some of the pitchforks and the torches down sometimes that can come
Well,
up online. So
look,
I
I
mean,
mean,
this is very good.
it's all kind of also a learning experience for the entire industry, and like everyone, it's a small world, and the collector consumer part of it is kind of its own small universe as well. And certainly in social media, um, things can get a little noisy. I mean, like the only thing I would throw out there is that, like, look, we're all fans of this, and sometimes you have to just kind of take a step back and go, well, but we got the lamp on Blu-ray at least, and a new transfer, and it came with the alternate packaging of the outing. But like, even if it had been just like a Blu-ray for with a crappy transfer at 9.99, that is the thing at the time for whatever reason, and it's out there. Like you kind of celebrate each little thing as it is, and maybe someday, certain things will be be available. That's certainly the dream of every collector.
Right. No, well said. Let's embrace what we have. I mean,
Yeah.
it's an amazing time to be involved. I had somebody ask me a question the other day. Is it too late for me to get into physical media? I'm like, no. Like
This is actually a
this is
great
the
time to get in.
this is the best time to get in. Like we're at the peak of format. Like
Yeah,
I don't know
video
how you feel, but
format
like
and
8K discs are not a reality. So like we're
yeah,
here. These are the best presentations that we've ever seen, and
I
packaging is incredible across the
yeah.
board in a lot of cases. I mean, it's just an awesome time to jump in.
Absolutely, and it's an affordable time too, with certainly Blu-ray being that kind of middle thing, and availability of a lot of discs that went out there in mass and maybe didn't sell through or what have you. You can really build a great collection at an affordable price. It's not always you don't have to lean into all the big ticket items to build a great collection. And really, we're seeing VHS starting to come back in the way in a strange way, that like I would say, my dream would be if it were like vinyl, but my personal opinion is that there's no way like vinyl, because I love vinyl and it sounds amazing, and VHS is I've never really been a fan of.
Yeah, that's the issue with a lot of people compare VHS to vinyl, and I go, but vinyl sounds
Vinyl's
great.
good, right?
Yeah,
Vinyl actually sounds better
VHS
than
is
your streaming, and VHS
there's a
is like,
nostalgia, there's a vibe if you wanted to go for that, sure.
I
Like
get it if you
if
weren't
you
around for it. Like it's the
I
same
think
thing.
that's a lot of it too.
Yeah,
Or even people my age who I kind of came in at the tail end. I had video stores for like a few years and then they were gone.
right, right.
So I can
Well,
understand the nostalgia.
absolutely. It's the nostalgia around Blockbuster even. Like Blockbuster is like that's like celebrating like the death of something. Like it literally killed it killed the video stores. Like it killed what video stores really were, and the experience of this sort of like curation and community and everything. So if VHS were to come back, I think it's all about the retro and the kitsch, and I think that's great. I mean, look at like even audio cassettes, just in general, coming back is really, who would have thought? Yeah,
Yeah. No,
exactly.
I've got a couple myself that I Guardians of the Galaxy
Yeah,
soundtracks on
exactly.
cassette that I bought as a collector's
Oh,
item.
we
I
still
don't even have a way
release.
to play them.
Yeah, we had a release of the Beverly Hills Cop soundtrack and Clue on audio cassette from Enjoy the Ride Records, and so like those again, like that's an example of a sub licensing opportunity from within, that just makes sense, as a
Yeah.
consumer
And I
product.
mean, this is why physical media is not going anywhere, because people are now buying cassette tapes again, and people want VHS tapes, and like they'll always be something. People, we're humans. We like to have things. We like to
Yeah,
own things, and yeah, I mean it'll always be somewhere. Whether it's the most I mean, it's not already not the most prominent, but it'll be there.
yeah,
I don't think
definitely.
it's not going anywhere. That's human nature.
I think one thing as a fan like that you hit on that's interesting is that new product not coming out on physical media is also kind of like a kind of situation, especially like something like All Quiet on the Western Front. Like, will that get a release? Maybe from Criterion, because they've released Netflix films
Oh,
before.
it is
But
getting one.
oh, it is okay. So bad example.
Well, literally, literally like yesterday. I
Oh,
think
did
it's
they?
MPI. I think MPI Media's got a 4K release coming
Oh,
out,
nice.
but
Yeah, yeah,
obviously that is a one-off, because
yeah.
and Criterion has a few Netflix movies, but I
Mhm.
mean there's dozens that don't have anything, or Disney Plus movies or
Yeah,
things
and
like that.
that all has to do with rights as well, by the way. Like if something is a premiere in an SVOD platform, then it might not have carve out rights to the rest of the company's verticals, or even a third party, you know, sub licensee. But that's exciting to see, because like The Irishman is a good example. Like you want to own that on 4K. It's like if you're a film fan and you love Scorsese and everything, and let alone for just the extras, for the bonus features.
All right. Well, I would say people out there, keep supporting,
Yeah,
keep buying. However you
great.
buy it, it really doesn't matter. It all supports, it.
Yeah,
But yeah,
exactly. I would say, just in general, like it's just a great time to be a collector of movies and be able to like, curate your own thing, and it's a great community. And for the most part, it's not pitchforks and fire. It is a really fun thing to see, and we appreciate folks like you spreading the word and really celebrating the stuff as well. It's a good
yeah,
thing.
no, I appreciate you guys working with me so I can cover this stuff too, because the reality is I couldn't buy them all, but
Right, there's that
by
too.
you embracing the content and being able to give me some new releases here and there from Paramount, some of the Paramount Presents stuff. I mean, it allows me to use the platform and get it out there in a way I
Yeah,
probably couldn't on my own. So
right.
it's same
Good.
here. I appreciate the support, and I'm very, very excited for Red Eye because I have not seen that since I had a Netflix DVD come in through the mail
Wow.
like
Yeah,
15 years ago, and that's the last
yeah.
time I saw it. So
Great.
I'll be all over that one. But there's
That's
great stuff
super
coming.
exciting.
So I'm really
Cool.
excited to see what you guys do next. And
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming on here. This is awesome.
Yeah, it's been fun to chat. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, we'll have to do it again, but this has been a lot of fun. And yeah, I'll catch all you guys on the other side of the interview. Thank you, Todd. All right. So that was our interview with Todd. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. He knows so much about this world. I learned a lot about the business side of things. Every time I have one of these conversations with somebody, I'm like, okay, I'm starting to understand more and more about why decisions are being made in this world of home entertainment. And I think that's such important context to have when you're creating the type of content I create. I should learn as much as I can about the space, and I'm learning a ton through this podcast, and hopefully, also educating you guys and letting you get those same insights by sharing them with you here on the podcast. So if you enjoyed this episode, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you enjoyed it and you're on your Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, wherever you are, please make sure you follow the podcast there, and also give us a 5-star rating if you've been enjoying the content. And of course, make sure to check out all of the other episodes. We have so many great episodes now on the podcast. There's a YouTube playlist full of them. If you're watching on video, there's a full audio stream of all of them on your favorite podcast apps. You can see and watch and listen to every single episode. So I appreciate that. Next week's episode is going to be an Ask Me Anything type episode. So I opened this up to the YouTube community and I said, ask me questions, type some questions in the comments. And I did about an hour answering your questions. So definitely, stay tuned for that one next week. But other than that, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Stay safe and stay healthy out there. And I'll talk to you soon.
Coming soon. Be sure to subscribe to the Films at Home podcast using your favorite app so you don't miss another episode. And while you're there, don't forget to rate and review this podcast, which helps us out tremendously. You can also help support us by watching our short-form content over on YouTube and TikTok by searching Films at Home. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at films_at_home. The intro and outro were created by Elin Osborne. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.